Tales of Hurting Gods, Episode 54. Interpreting Classic Original Works, Savoring Human Destinies. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Records of Mu Xin Original Work Interpretation Series. This video is jointly produced by Feitian Xinhong and Mu Shisheng Xiang. Fellow Taoists who enjoy it, please like, coin, and support us. Picking up from last time, after the butcher chopped down a Wu King with one strike, he no longer bothered with Beishan Jiji. Instead, he directed the green ox towards the Golden Palace. After another half a day, the green ox carried them back to Ruoshui Lake and stopped. The butcher looked at the blind man and said, "Blind man, you and Muir come up the mountain with me. I don't have my lower body right now, so I can't beat that old guy." "All right." The blind man jumped off the ox's back. Qin Mu told Lin Yuxiu, Hu Ling and Qing Lu to stay there, saying, "We'll be back soon." Lin Yuxiu nodded, "Be careful." The butcher came to Ruoshui Lake, shook his head, and said, "Beishan, this kid hasn't made any progress in all these years. He hasn't even moved this lake away." He often inhaled, astonishing Lin Yuxiu, the little fox, and the green ox who were behind him. They saw winds swirling all around, and the clouds in the sky were also swept in by the strong winds towards the old man in front of them, who only had his upper body. He was breathing in. The grassland was high, and the clouds were relatively low, but they were still thousands of feet away. This old man took a breath, and even the white clouds in the sky were sucked into his belly. It was incredibly powerful. This was the most supreme combat technique in Legends. Masters of the combat technique school excelled in physical strength. The most supreme masters of the school had a special characteristic: a certain part of their body had already become divine. They didn't need to deliberately cast divine abilities. Every move they made was a divine ability. The butcher took a deep breath, and the nearby clouds were almost entirely sucked in by him. Then he blew out a breath. Whoosh! The Ruoshui Lake in front of them was suddenly lifted up. The waves grew higher and higher, like a sea standing upright. This upright sea rapidly receded, almost instantly blown into the snow mountains, filling their large and small valleys. The lake in front of them dried up, and even the white bones in the lake were blown away. The silt at the bottom of the lake was also scraped clean. Qin Mu opened his heavenly eye and looked. The green veil covering the lake was also blown away by the butcher's breath, disappearing without a trace. No one knew where it flew. The most supreme masters of the combat technique school do not use magical abilities to change geography. However, such beings possess incredibly powerful physical bodies. To change geography or weather, why would they need magical abilities? Qin Mu blinked and followed the butcher. He cultivated the hegemon body 3 Dan Palace, which was good in every way, except it had no divine abilities, no body-refining techniques, and no sword arts. The butcher, precisely because Qin Mu cultivated the hegemon body 3 Dan Palace, did not pass on his body-refining cultivation method to him, so as not to hinder his cultivation. In fact, everyone in the village had their own unique cultivation methods, but no one taught him. Obviously, since the most powerful village chief didn't teach him, others wouldn't dare either. Playing the thief in front of Guangong. Lulan. Inside the Golden Palace, there was a gasp of astonishment. Blowing away the Ruoshui Lake in front of the Golden Palace with a single breath, such a heaven-shaking divine ability was simply unbelievable. How could it not shock the shamans and great shamans of the Golden Palace, causing their minds to tremble? In front of the sacred hall, Wuzun stood holding his scepter, with 2 golden rays shining from his eyes, falling upon the 3 people walking across the dried lakebed. His eyelids twitched. He was the sect master of the Golden Palace. Because he envied the butcher's powerful physical body, after learning that the butcher had swung his blade at the heavens and was struck down by the gods, he immediately infiltrated Yankang, destroyed the small sect that had stolen the butcher's lower body, and took the butcher's lower body. He knew the butcher's physical body surpassed his own. Therefore, he resolutely cut off his own lower body and replaced it with the butcher's body. And now, the scene from his nightmares had become reality. That heavenly Khan had not died. He had come to reclaim his lower body. Wuzun's eyelids twitched violently. He turned and walked into the sacred hall. On the divine altars in the hall, figures of bones were seated, some human-shaped, some beast-shaped. There were 18 divine altars in total. On the 18th divine altar sat a disheveled, filthy old man, nothing but skin and bones, as withered as death. Wuzun knelt on one knee and bowed, saying, "Great Venerable, the heavenly Khan has arrived." The disheveled old man on the divine altar opened his eyes, his voice like a whistle. "Where is the reincarnated sacred child I asked you to find for me?" Fine golden beads of sweat appeared on Wuzun's forehead. He said in a trembling voice, "I haven't found him yet." The disheveled old man's voice became sharp. "Without the reincarnated sacred child, wouldn't my 17 reincarnations all be in vain? I am only half a step away from becoming a god." Wuzun bowed his head deeply, not daring to speak. The disheveled old man then said sternly, "With me here, the heavenly blade will not dare to trouble you. But I will not easily sacrifice my life to help you. Return his lower body to him, and immediately find the reincarnated sacred child for me." A sudden flash of light passed through Wuzun's mind, cutting across his waist. Before he could stop it, his lower body was gone. Wuzun was silent. After a moment, he spoke, "Jiatsua Shitty, come in." A Wu King entered upon hearing the call. Wuzun raised his fist and palm, piercing the Wu King's head, then cut off his lower body and attached it to his own. His expression was calm as still water. He bowed and said, "Master, your disciple takes his leave." The disheveled old man closed his eyes. "If you cannot find the reincarnated sacred child, you know the consequences." Wuzun bowed and retreated with the butcher's lower body, exiting the sacred hall. Behind him, chewing sounds came from inside the great hall, as if something was consuming Jiatsua, the Wu King's corpse. Wuzun's eyelids twitched again. A sharp pain shot through his waist. He had only roughly placed his upper body onto Jiatsua, the Wu King's lower body, forcibly connecting the two with magic power. But their flesh, bones, and meridians were not truly connected. He had to use a specific method to integrate the two, only then could Jiatsua's body become his own. Ever since he obtained the butcher's lower body, he thought his life's achievements could finally advance further. He never expected the butcher wasn't dead and had come looking for him. And the Great Venerable, due to his withered physical body, dared not fight the butcher to the death. This forced him to give up the butcher's lower body. Although Jiatsua, the Wu King's abilities were not bad, they were still inferior to his former physical body. To cultivate back to his previous realm, who knew how long it would take? Wuzun endured the pain and carried the butcher's lower body down the mountain. Qin Mu, the butcher, and the blind man met him halfway up the mountain. Wuzun put down the butcher's lower body and bowed. The butcher looked at his own lower body, then at Wuzun's waist, and shook his head, saying, "Why bother? You've nurtured my physical body for over 200 years. I should thank you for keeping my body alive." Wuzun's eyelids twitched twice again. Qin Mu took out the golden lower body and said, "Wuzun, here's your body back. It's no use to me." Wuzun's facial muscles twitched as he said, "I don't need it anymore." Qin Mu replied, "It's good for refining treasures then. I see your body isn't properly reattached yet. I also have some medical skills. If Wuzun trusts me, I can help you. You want to take this opportunity to harm me?" Wuzun snorted coldly and turned to leave with his own lower body. Qin Mu shook his head, seeing the healer's parental heart. "I plan to practice on his body, then help Grandpa Butcher reattach his body. Butcher, your medical skills are trustworthy. Of course, if we can go back and find the key, and have the key personally take action, that would be even better. But going back to the university would take too long. Did he suddenly get promoted? Is that old guy still alive?" The voice was loud, echoing throughout the mountain. In the Lulon Golden Palace Sanctuary, an old, sharp voice came, "Don't worry, Heavenly Blade is not dead yet." "How could I die?" The one who said this was naturally the Grand Venerable. "This old ghost is still alive." The butcher sneered, "You'll die sooner or later. Let's go." Qin Mu picked up the butcher's lower body. The three of them descended the mountain together. The blind man looked back at the mountain and said thoughtfully, "The person inside is very strong." The butcher said, "With only our lower bodies, we're probably not his match. That's why I asked you to come with me. This old guy has reincarnated 17 times, living for 18 generations. His lifespan must be tens of thousands of years, yet he's still not dead. I fought him a few times. He's very formidable." Qin Mu was shocked. The butcher continued, "In the great ruins, you must have seen gods and demons who have lived for more than 10,000 years, right? Actually, there are some other terrifying things in this world, but you're still young and can't come into contact with such beings yet. Although that old fellow isn't a god or demon, he's not far from it. He knows many past events, many secrets. If he weren't an enemy, I wouldn't oppose him." The blind man nodded, but didn't say much. Qin Mu's heart trembled. The blind man's eyes were gouged out by someone, but who exactly did it, the blind man never said. What secret lies behind this? A brief spoiler: the blind man's eyes were gouged out by Xing, an imperial advisor. Yan Kang is a saint who appears once every 500 years, and Xing'an was the saint who appeared in the previous 500 years. Xing'an and the Grand Venerable will have many confrontations with Qin Mu in the future. It will be very exciting. They left the Lulan Golden Palace and met up with Lin Yuxiu, heading to the Manchu city on the prairie. After Qin Mu bought some medicinal herbs in the city, he began to reattach the butcher's body. The first step in reattaching it was to first refine away the residual blood and toxins from Wuzuan. He took out a large cauldron from his cloth bag, then put a large vat of water and some medicinal herbs into the cauldron. After it boiled, he placed the butcher's lower body into the water. After boiling for a while, Qin Mu opened the medicine pouch and took out a few dried, red and black frogs, scattering them into the cauldron. The frogs then absorbed enough water to come alive and began to absorb the toxins. Soon after, the frogs died from the poison. Qin Mu changed the water again and repeated the process. He repeated this 9 times. When he saw that the blood in the butcher's lower body had returned to red, he then boiled water again, adding dozens of other medicinal herbs, and boiled the butcher's lower body again to stimulate the vitality of the flesh and blood. This continued until late at night. Everyone, please rest assured, the butcher's physical body is very strong. Simply boiling it in hot water won't make meat broth. At most, it's bath water. After doing all this, Qin Mu told the butcher that he still needed to cut off the fleshy growth from the bottom of his upper body. The butcher drew his pig slaughtering knife, gritted his teeth, and made a cut below himself. He then immediately sealed the wound with vital qi. Qin Mu fished the lower body out of the cauldron, carefully applied dragon's saliva to the lower body and the cut surface of the upper body. Immediately, flesh buds grew rapidly. Then, he used vital qi like threads, carefully pulling out each tendon and nerve, connecting the tendons and nerves of the upper and lower halves one by one. Finally, he applied concentrated skin-growing medicine to the butcher's wound, and the flesh grew and connected. Thus, the butcher's body was reattached. Qin Mu, invigorated, carried the entire butcher and placed him in the medicinal cauldron. He poured the last packet of medicinal herbs into the cauldron, lit a fire, and slowly simmered it. Boiling it for a while longer would be enough. The water gradually boiled. The butcher comfortably exhaled a puff of white mist and said, "Muir, you've worked hard." "Oh, right, I saw you kept taking things out of that small cloth bag earlier. This cauldron also came out of it. Let me see that cloth bag." Qin Mu handed over the cloth bag, telling him that he picked it up from the Lulan Golden Palace's treasury and that it was about an acre in size inside. The butcher opened the cloth bag and glanced inside, immediately knowing that Qin Mu wasn't telling the truth. So he sighed and said, "It's fine if you learn from the cripple, but don't get addicted. Actually, everyone in our village has their own flaws. The cripple likes to steal things, sometimes he poisons people at the drop of a hat, and he's a philanderer. As for me, I used to be too arrogant, like a god making his debut. The blind man is arrogant and flirtatious. The deaf man is too proud. The mute man has too many of his own ideas and tells no one. Don't even mention the village chief. He pretends to be profound and mysterious every day. As for Granny, she's a troublemaker. I'm just afraid you'll learn all our shortcomings." Qin Mu solemnly said, Grandpa Butcher, don't worry. Since leaving the village, I haven't caused any trouble. Grandmaster Fire is very satisfied with me. That's good. It's okay to cause trouble, but you must be able to resolve it. Then the butcher told Qin Mu that this cloth bag was called a taodai pouch. It was refined from the skin of a taodai. A taodai is a divine beast. There should be pure-blooded taodai in the Great Ruins, but even if everyone in our village went together, we might only be able to defeat it. This taodai pouch is not made from pure-blooded taodai skin, but its lineage is already extremely high. This kind of divine beast only eats and doesn't excrete, so the space inside its belly is vast. Its skin can be used to refine taodai pouches, and its bones, when ground and mixed with stone, can be used to build houses. They are all very useful. It's just that pure-blooded ones are too rare. While they chatted, Qin Mu unknowingly fell asleep sitting up. When he woke up, he found that the fire under the cauldron had extinguished. Just as he was about to relight the fire, a voice behind him reminded him that his body was already fine. Turning around, the butcher had already gotten out of the cauldron and was fully dressed. Wearing new pants, his messy beard was cleanly shaved. Now he was clean and refreshed, exuding natural authority without anger. The butcher looked Qin Mu up and down, nodding repeatedly. You've grown up. Before, we helped you. Now you can help us. Very good, very good. Just then, the blind man's voice came from outside. Pig Butcher, if you keep talking, you won't be able to leave. Your disciple is catching up. The butcher walked out, saying, There's a divine hand drum in your taodai pouch. I'll keep it for you for now. That god is still alive. If you keep it, you'll only bring disaster upon yourself. Qin Mu was startled. The owner of the hand drum is still alive? The butcher's voice drifted back. I chopped it down from the heavens back then, so of course he's still alive. This is the hand I exchanged for my lower body. However, the divine flesh on it was probably refined into a spiritual elixir and eaten by someone. Only the bones are left. Afterwards, the figures of the butcher and the blind man gradually faded into the distance. Muir, remember to come back to the village for New Year's. Finally, the blind man's voice came from afar. Qin Mu watched them leave, waving at their retreating figures. I'll definitely be back for New Year's. Not long after. A deep voice came from afar, echoing endlessly over the prairie. Junior brother Qin Shi. It was indeed the voice of Beishan Jijio. Qin Mu quickly shouted, I'm here. The voice continued to shout, Dr. Qin. Dr. Qin. Qin Mu responded again. However, Beishan Jijio's voice was still calling from afar. Qin Mu then realized Beishan Jijio is probably still hundreds of miles away from here. His voice can reach here, but my voice can't travel that far to him. Lin Yuxiu woke up and quickly declared, Let me, the cowherd, do it. With a wave of her hand, a firework divine ability appeared, and a fireball exploded in midair with rolling flames. Qin Mu praised her intelligence, but then laughed, It's useless. He's still hundreds of miles away and can't see it. Hu Linger and the green ox also woke up. Not seeing the butcher and the blind man, Qin Mu informed them that the two had already left. As Beishan Jijio continued to shout, Qin Mu sighed and told Xingyu to head towards the border pass first, reasoning, Beishan Jijio will surely go there if he can't find us. Xingyu revealed his true form. Qin Mu took Hu Linger onto the ox's back, and Lin Yuxiu also jumped on. Xingyu then galloped towards the border pass. Qin Mu looked at the girl beside him and asked, Have your injuries healed? Lin Yuxiu nodded, saying, Even the scars are gone. Look, I was originally hit by an arrow in my waist, but now it's completely healed. As she spoke, she lifted her clothes, revealing her delicate and very fair waist. Qin Mu reached out a finger and touched the wound, still feeling a slight bump. Lin Yuxiu felt a little ticklish and giggled. Qin Mu said, Don't move. I'll help you dissolve the stagnant blood here, otherwise it will remain swollen. Lin Yuxiu quickly stayed still. At that spot, Qin Mu transformed his vital energy into Azure Dragon Vital Energy, carefully controlling it to penetrate her skin and dissolve the stagnant blood. Lin Yuxiu felt a tingling and ticklish sensation, giggling, Brother, you're making me so ticklish. Without lifting his head, Qin Mu replied, bear with it. It won't be ticklish in a moment. It will hurt a little. A moment later, Lin Yuxiu felt a sharp, stinging pain. She quickly looked down and saw Qin Mu wiping away the stagnant blood seeping from her skin. After the stagnant blood flowed out, no marks were left on her skin. Lin Yuxiu lowered her clothes and blinked her big eyes, exclaiming, "Divine Doctor." Lin Yuxiu then added, "I still have a few wounds on my back. I wonder if they'll leave scars." Hu Linger, with a crisp voice, replied, "I applied the medicine to the wounds on your back. I already squeezed out the stagnant blood before applying the medicine, so there won't be any scars." Lin Yuxiu looked at her, and the little fox smiled sweetly and falsely. Humph. A silent battle of wits ensued between the fox spirit girl, Lin Yuxiu, and the actual fox spirit, Hu Linger. Hu Linger blinked and asked, "Sister Yuxiu, how old are you this year?" Lin Yuxiu's eyes flickered as she countered, "How old are you?" Hu Linger stated, "I'm 12. Lin Yuxiu replied, "I'm 16. Hu Linger then delivered a jab, "You're 1 year older than young master." Lin Yuxiu felt as if the little fox had pounced on her and stabbed her heart twice. She was very hurt. Although this fox was tiny, its moves were vicious and sudden, leaving her defenseless. She had long seen that the little fox had ill intentions, deliberately sneaking into Qin Mu's bed every night, pretending to be innocent. Being cute was shameful, without a shred of modesty. And now, this little hussy had started to actively attack. Although Lin Yuxiu was usually carefree and seemed like a broad-minded girl, possessing a frankness and generosity rare among other girls, she also had a delicate side. She sweetly smiled and said to Hu Linger, "Sister Lin, the fur on your paws is so soft. Why haven't you tried turning them into human hands?" Hu Linger yawned and squinted her eyes. "Young master likes Sister Lin. Why haven't you transformed yet? Young master likes you. Look, your pupils are different from ours." Lin Yuxiu conceded defeat. This little fox's defense was airtight, watertight. Lin Yuxiu was no match. She wondered who this fox spirit learned from. Hu Linger was triumphant. In the Tingyu Pavilion, she had indeed consulted with the girls there about these kinds of skills. Haha, learned from a brothel. Lin Yuxiu suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was actually competing with a little fox for affection. It truly diminished her royal prestige. She had breasts if she wanted breasts and a figure if she wanted a figure. Although Qin Mu was a bit blind, always saying she was a bit fat, she wasn't bad-looking herself. No matter how sharp the little fox's moves were, it hadn't transformed into human form. She already held the upper hand. There was absolutely no need to compete with this fox spirit for affection. The group continued on their journey. Before they reached the border pass, Beishan Jijio finally caught up. Seeing that the butcher had already left, the strong man couldn't help but burst into tears, cursing the heavenly Tao as he cried. Qin Mu comforted him for a moment. Then, Beishan Jijio wiped away his tears and began to pour out his grievances, starting from his childhood when he followed Heavenly Blade, telling every tiny detail. Qin Mu was quite helpless. At the same time, the young patriarch of the Imperial College silently packed his bags, threw his ancestral tablet on the ground, and hung his official seal on the door of the Imperial College Hall. He then looked back at the Imperial College and smiled. The enforcement elder, carrying a small bamboo basket on his back, walked quickly over. The young patriarch smiled and said, "Let's go. No need to alarm anyone else." The two walked down the mountain. When they reached the mountain gate at the foot of the mountain, the dragon Qilin quickly stood up. It wagged its yellow tail and said, "My time is almost up. I can't take you with me." The young patriarch stroked the dragon Qilin's head, shook his head, and replied, "If you follow me, you'll only watch me grow old and die, little fellow. You are free." Click the chains on the dragon Qilin's neck opened. The dragon Qilin shook its large head in confusion and asked, "Master, if I don't follow you, where can I go?" The young patriarch responded, "You are inherently free. Where can you not go?" The young patriarch waved his hand, looking at the Imperial College he had personally founded. There was a hint of reluctance in his eyes. He suddenly turned and left, muttering, "The place where I'll spend my final years. Today I depart. I don't want to die of old age in the Imperial College." The old and the young walked out of the capital. Outside the city, the young patriarch told the enforcement elder to stop. He himself walked towards the person opposite him, who greeted him. Fellow Taoist, the imperial preceptor established the Tao. Fellow Taoist, are you leaving already? Aren't you going to resign to the emperor? The young patriarch smiled and replied, when I took office, I was also carefree. I didn't come for the emperor, so why should I leave for the emperor? You invited me here, and now you're seeing me off. I'm very happy. Imperial preceptor Yenkang sighed, fellow Taoist, you can already face life and death directly. To reach your level of mental state, I don't know how many more years I'll need to cultivate. Let me see you off. The two walked forward side by side, with the enforcement elder following not far behind. Imperial preceptor Yenkang said, knowing you're leaving, a large void suddenly appeared in my heart. In this world, no one understands me better than you. Without you, there's one less person I can talk to. The young ancestor said, your aspirations are grand. The road ahead will be full of hardships and challenges. I have nothing more to teach you. You must rely on yourself. Yenkang, the imperial preceptor, stopped and asked, when I wanted to become your disciple back then, why did you refuse me? The young ancestor calmly replied, I realized you were better than me, and your future achievements would surpass mine. I was unworthy to be your master, so I could not take you as a disciple. What you wish to do is something I never thought of before, and something I could never achieve in my lifetime. I also learned a lot from you, so I cannot be your teacher. Yenkang, the imperial preceptor, quickened his pace, catching up to him and saying, I'm still a bit lost and troubled lately. Do you think the path we're on is the righteous one? The young ancestor stopped, looking into his eyes, and said, in the eyes of the so-called righteous path, the path we walk is not righteous. We established elementary schools, universities, reformed sects and their teachings, and imparted knowledge to disciples, making common people equal to sect disciples. In their eyes, this is heresy, an unforgivable sin. But in our hearts, this is the righteous path. Don't mind what others say. What is right is right. It won't become wrong because of petty slander. Yenkang, the imperial preceptor, trembled. When you do something unconventional, even if it's completely right, it's often very difficult. At such times, you need someone like the young ancestor. The young ancestor smiled and said, what you intend to do is too grand. The road ahead is full of thorns. My lifespan is nearing its end. I can no longer help you. You must rely on yourself. Go back. Yenkang, the imperial preceptor, bowed deeply and thanked him for half a lifetime of support. The young ancestor was worthy of the imperial preceptor's profound gratitude. He also said, since we walk the same path, we should naturally support each other. Yenkang, the imperial preceptor, turned and left, moving through the ranks and disappearing into the vast crowds of the capital. The young ancestor stood up, called for the enforcer Zheng Lao, and said, let's go. The young cult master should ascend the throne. At the border pass, Ba Shan Jiju's face was grim. He led Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu into the Manchu border village, feeling very displeased. But when the Manchu general saw them return, his expression slightly changed. He stepped forward and said, Wukun, the Holy Land has an order. If we encounter you, we are not to let you leave the pass. Ba Shan Jiju's gaze was chilling as he coldly said, do you want to die? The Manchu general shivered. Ba Shan Jiju then swept his gaze over the surrounding generals and coldly said, do all of you want to die? The Manchu general could only brace himself and open the pass, allowing Ba Shan Jiju and his group to leave. Qin Mu looked back and saw a young Manchu on the city tower practicing martial arts. His movements were powerful and swift, making one sigh in admiration. When the young Manchu saw someone watching, he quickly composed himself and looked down. The young man's eyes sparkled with spirit as he loudly called out, Wukun. My name is Ban Gongxue. I am the youngest son of the Grassland King. In the future, I will definitely defeat Wukun and become the overlord of the grasslands. Ba Shan Jiju turned and glanced at the young Manchu, praising him ambitious. Keep practicing. He's a promising talent with a good foundation. He then said to Qin Mu, This child's boxing style is broad and open, and his strength is much fiercer than others. His physical aptitude is very special. He will surely achieve great things in the future. Qin nodded. The same moves, the same cultivation, yet some people's punches are simply stronger than others. This is natural talent, something others cannot envy. Then they walked towards Chimen Pass. Not long after, a golden light flashed in the sky, and a Wu King descended. His face was grim. He called the general and said, "You let Wukan go?" The general braced himself and replied, "Wukan's divine power is boundless. How dare we stop him? If we had forcibly stopped him, I fear our border soldiers would have suffered heavy casualties, and then we wouldn't be able to hold back Yan Kang's army." The Wu King snorted coldly, about to get angry. Suddenly, he saw Ban Gongxue practicing martial arts on the city tower, and his heart was filled with both surprise and joy. He pointed at Ban Gongxue and asked, "Whose child is that?" The general replied, "He is the youngest son of the great Khan of the barbarian kingdom, Prince Ban Gongxue." The Wu King, however, smiled. He reached out and grabbed Ban Gongxue from afar. Ban Gongxue flew involuntarily and landed in front of him. "What excellent aptitude!" the Wu King exclaimed. "This is the special physique Wuzuan is looking for." The Wu King looked him up and down, showing approval as he said, "Wuzuan ordered me to find the reincarnated holy lineage, and I have finally found Ban Gongxue. Come with me." The general was greatly alarmed and was about to stop him, but the Wu King had already transformed into a golden light, taking Ban Gongxue and vanishing. When he brought Ban Gongxue back to the Lulan Golden Palace and presented the young prince to Wuzuan, Wuzuan was also both surprised and delighted. He hurriedly took Ban Gongxue to the sacred temple to report. A shrill laugh came from the divine tablet. Immediately, a withered, monstrous figure flew out, its feet pressing against Ban Gongxue. Ban Gongxue's mind was filled with an earth-shattering roar, and then his soul scattered. A surging, astonishing energy continuously poured from the monstrous figure into Ban Gongxue's body. At the same time, the great venerable soul was also transferring into Ban Gongxue's body. Zheng was startled as the great venerable commanded, "Orphan. I defied fate and changed my destiny. Those who should die do not die, and those who should live do not live. Therefore, the underworld envoys will come to retrieve my soul. You must set up a formation to block them." Wuzuan immediately stepped forward, bringing out divine tablets one by one and arranging them in a circle around Ban Gongxue. The bones within those divine tablets were precisely the skeletons left behind by the great venerable after his death in his previous 17 lives, refined into magical artifacts. Suddenly, space vibrated and a chilling wind blew from another dimension. The lights in the sacred temple immediately dimmed. A small boat drifted from another dimension. It was a dark world, and the only light was a single green lamp at the bow of the boat. The green lamp was dim and unclear. Beneath the lamp, an old man sat weeping, folding paper boats. The paper boat drifted slowly towards the sacred temple. Wuzuan was half tense, hurriedly channeling all his magical power into the divine tablets. The 17 skeletal bones within the divine tablets seemed to come alive. They stood across the entrance between the other world and the real world. The withered old man on the boat suddenly raised his hand. Paper figures and paper horses seemed to come alive. The paper figures rode on the paper horses, and the paper horses galloped joyfully, charging towards the entrance blocked by the skeletal bones, while the paper figures on horseback brandished paper blades. They seemed to be shouting, full of murderous intent. The 17 skeletal bones moved, engaging in battle with the paper figures and horses. These 17 skeletal bones formed a formation, possessing immense power. However, the power emanating from the other world was also terrifying. The paper figures' paper blades slashed and stabbed, one strike capable of severing a bone, one sword strike could pierce a skull. Even the great venerable's skeletal bones from his previous 17 lives, controlled by Wuzuan, held on desperately, fiercely resisting the attacks of the paper figures and horses, while the great venerable hastened his reincarnation. However, the small boat from the other world drew closer and closer, and the old man holding the lamp on the boat stood up. Wuzuan's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. He saw that the small boat had already drifted to the edge, about to cross from the other world into the real world, and the old man with the lamp at the bow reached out his hand. It seemed to reach out from the other world, intending to pull the Great Venerable, who was in the midst of reincarnation, into that world. Suddenly, the Great Venerable's body stiffened and fell from the air, having no breath left. Meanwhile, Ban Gongxue opened his clear, bright eyes. As soon as his eyes opened, the connection between the two worlds began to collapse. The paper figures and horses spontaneously combusted without fire, instantly turning to ashes. And the hand that had reached out from the other world slowly retracted and disappeared. The lights in the sacred temple suddenly brightened. The dim world from before vanished without a trace. Congratulations, Great Venerable. Wuzuan bowed. Ban Gongxue waved his hand. Wuzuan bowed and retreated, closing the door and letting out a sigh of relief. If the Great Venerable hadn't been old and frail, how could the heavenly blade have come knocking? Now that the Great Venerable has reincarnated, he can finally live out his rituals again. Yankan Kingdom is no longer a concern, and the heavenly blade is no longer a threat. Thus, the Great Venerable's 19th reincarnation was successful. From now on, Ban Gongxue is the Great Venerable and the Great Venerable is Ban Gongxue. At Qimen Pass, Qin Mu still gave Ba Shan Jiju 2 imperial pills. Earlier, they had fought fiercely in Lulan against the strong practitioners of the Golden Palace, and Ba Shan Jiju's injuries were not light. Besides external wounds, he also needed spirit pills to heal internal injuries and remove hidden ailments. Then he went to buy some spiritual herbs to refine pills. Qin Mu had the herbs ready. The pharmacy assistant suddenly said, "Please, young master, leave the pass as soon as possible. Go to Yangzhou. The ancestor is looking for you." This was the young ancestor asking Qin Mu to go to the heavenly demon cult space in Yangzhou to ascend to the position of demonic cult master. Qin Mu paused slightly, then nodded. He returned to the inn at the pass, refined a batch of healing spirit pills for Ba Shan Jiju, and then, without a word, left the pass with Hu Linger, heading towards Yangzhou. Ming Yuxiu was taking a bath. After she finished, she couldn't find Qin Mu, so she quickly asked Ba Shan Jiju. Ba Shan Jiju didn't know when Qin Mu had left, but he realized the fox wasn't there either, which meant Qin Mu had left with the fox. Ling Yuxiu couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Ba Shan Jiju suggested they return to the Imperial Academy first. The Grand Libationer was about to resign, and the new Grand Libationer would soon take office. They could go back and see him off. Ling Yuxiu agreed. Meanwhile, Qin Mu traveled with Hu Linger. As they got closer to Yangzhou, the journey was filled with chaos and warfare. From time to time, sects would announce that Emperor Wudao had mistakenly appointed Yan Kang as imperial preceptor, bringing disaster upon the world. Therefore, the sects revolted to set things right. He arrived in Luodu, next to Yangzhou. Luodu was also plagued by war, with people suffering greatly. Armies from various regions were quelling rebellions everywhere. The fire of Yan Kang's reforms had burned too fiercely. Many of the officials at all levels of Yankan Kingdom were masters from various sections. Now that these sects were rebelling, these officials also rebelled. The empire's foundation was shaken, and it was already difficult to quell the unrest. What methods did the imperial preceptor have to pacify the chaos in the world? Qin Mu was very puzzled. If the chaos continued, I feared all the sects in the world would rebel. Even if Yankan Kingdom could quell the rebellion then, it would suffer a great loss of vitality. At this moment, Luodu was in chaos, with bandits rampant. Qin Mu, relying on his speed, couldn't defeat them all, so he used the cripple's heaven-stealing leg technique, and the journey was peaceful enough. Next would be Qin Mu's grand ceremony to ascend as cult master. What kind of spectacle would it be? Tune in next time for the continuation. For more interpretations of human destiny, please follow Feitian Xinhong and Mu Zishengxiang, the original author of Mu Xinji, Jiazhu, Don't Go Out After Dark. 3 consecutive arrows for peace. 3 consecutive arrows for peace. Okay, that's all the content for this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. After all, your support is my motivation to keep creating content. I'm Cheen Moose. See you in the next video.